The signal arrived at 3:47 Universal Coordinated Time, slicing through the electromagnetic spectrum like a quantum razor. Dr. Elena Rodriguez knew something was different the moment the first algorithmic fragments began to parse across her research station's primary quantum receiver. The Global Adaptive Survival Institute occupied a research complex nestled in the Atacama Desert, deliberately placed in one of Earth's most unforgiving environments. Concrete and titanium structures rose from rust-colored earth, a testament to human engineering prowess. Inside, Rodriguez's team represented the bleeding edge of human adaptability research, a group dedicated to understanding survival at its most fundamental level. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, each movement creating cascading waves of data that most computer systems would have rejected as nonsensical. But this wasn't most computer systems. The Institute's quantum network was designed to process the impossible, to find patterns where others saw only chaos. Marcus, she called to her lead computational analyst, run a spectral analysis on these transmission fragments. Marcus Chen looked like he hadn't slept in days, which was accurate. His eyes, magnified by augmented reality contacts, reflected a dizzying array of mathematical sequences that would have driven most humans to madness. "It's extraordinary," he muttered, his voice a mix of exhaustion and pure scientific excitement. The signal defied everything they understood about interstellar communication. Its encryption wasn't just complex, it was alive. Each algorithmic segment seemed to shift and adapt, revealing different layers of information depending on how it was observed. It was less a message and more a living mathematical organism. Outside the research complex, the Atacama Desert stretched in harsh, beautiful desolation. Rows of solar collectors glinted under the harsh sunlight, powering the most advanced research facility of its kind. Automated defense systems, a necessity in a world of increasing geopolitical tension, created a technological fortress that blended seamlessly with the rocky landscape. Rodriguez knew they had mere minutes before other global monitoring systems caught the transmission. The Global Adaptive Survival Institute might be the most advanced survival research center on the planet, but it wasn't the only one watching the stars. "Isolate the primary transmission vector," she commanded, her voice cutting through the tension. Marcus's fingers moved with surgical precision. Holographic displays erupted around him, each showing different dimensional analyses of the signal. "The origin point is impossible," he said, a tremor of disbelief in his voice. "It's located in a region of space that shouldn't exist according to our current astronomical models." A soft alarm began to pulse, not a warning, but an invitation. The signal was completing its initial decode sequence, and it was looking for a response. Jack Nakamura entered the room, moving with the controlled grace of someone who had survived situations that would have killed most humans a dozen times over. Former Special Operations, current survival research lead, he carried an aura of controlled intensity that seemed to compress the very air around him. "Talk to me," he said, not a question but a demand. Rodriguez didn't look away from the cascading data. "We've got a transmission that's part mathematical puzzle, part cosmic invitation, and it's specifically targeting our frequency band." Nakamura raised an eyebrow. "Targeting us? Specifically?" "Not just us," Rodriguez corrected, "but specifically human computational and survival parameters. This isn't a random broadcast. This is a test." The room fell silent. Outside, the desert wind whispered against titanium-reinforced walls, carrying the promise of something extraordinary. Marcus suddenly sat up straight, his augmented eyes wide. "Dr. Rodriguez, the final decryption is completing. You're going to want to see this." The primary holographic display shifted, revealing a three-dimensional representation that was part star chart, part living mathematical construct. It pulsed with an energy that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. An invitation, a challenge, a summons. Jack Nakamura's lips curled into the barest hint of a smile. "Gear up," he said, echoing Rodriguez's earlier sentiment. "We're going hunting." The impossible had just become possible, and humanity was about to answer the call. The selection process was anything but standard. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic display that most would have mistaken for a military nightmare or a psychological profile gone mad. These weren't recruits. They were living proof of human survival's most extreme potential. Her first selection was Maria Cortez, a woman who had redefined the very concept of human endurance. 5 years ago, she'd been part of a research expedition in the Amazon that went catastrophically wrong. When the rescue teams finally found her 3 years later, she had not only survived, but had created an entire sustainable ecosystem around her makeshift camp. Indigenous plant species have been crossbred, water purification systems engineered from local materials, and a network of early warning systems that would make most military strategists weep with envy. Cortez sat across from Rodriguez, her hands, covered in microscopic scars from years of survival, folded calmly on the table. Her eyes told a story of survival that defied logical explanation. She wore simple clothing, each piece carefully modified with hidden survival tools. A patch from her original research team was sewn onto her sleeve, a reminder of what was lost and what was ultimately gained. "We received the signal," Rodriguez began, sliding a holographic data projection between them. "And we need someone who doesn't just survive, but reimagines survival itself." A slight smile crossed Cortez's lips. "I'm listening." The second recruit was Dr. Ahmed Khan, a nuclear physicist who had become legendary in scientific circles for reasons that went far beyond academic achievement. During a critical reactor malfunction in a research facility in Kazakhstan, Khan had manually stopped a potential meltdown using nothing more than a standard wrench. His understanding of nuclear physics and what could only be described as pure human audacity. Rodriguez found him in a small laboratory in Lahore, where he was currently developing next-generation radiation-resistant materials. Scattered around his workspace were prototypes that looked more like works of art than scientific instruments, each one a testament to human innovation. "Another impossible challenge?" Khan asked, not looking up from his work. A half-empty cup of chai sat next to a complex molecular model that seemed to defy conventional physics. "The most impossible yet," Rodriguez responded. The third member of the team was Sergei Volkov, a name that sent shivers through military intelligence circles worldwide. He wasn't just an ex-Siberian military operative. He was a walking legend of human survival. Volkov had survived 47 days in the Arctic after his entire unit was lost during a classified mission. When they found him, he had not only kept himself alive, but had documented extensive ecological and geological observations that would become the cornerstone of several groundbreaking research papers. Rodriguez found him teaching survival techniques to a group of international researchers in a remote Siberian training facility. Thick scars traced the outline of his face, each one a story of survival that most would consider impossible. "Another mission where the odds are completely against us?" Volkov asked, his accent a mix of Russian discipline and wry humor. "Precisely," Rodriguez confirmed. As they gathered in the Institute's primary briefing room, the atmosphere was anything but tense. These weren't individuals brought together by fear or obligation. They were united by a fundamental understanding that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its technology, but in its ability to adapt, to reimagine, to survive. Jack Nakamura entered the room, bringing with him a portable holographic display that began to unfold the details of the mysterious signal. The team leaned in, not with apprehension, but with a collective sense of anticipation. "What we're looking at," Nakamura began, "is an invitation, not just to explore, but to prove something about our species." Maria Cortez leaned forward, her eyes reflecting a lifetime of impossible survivals. "Prove what?" "That humanity is more than just another species," Rodriguez interjected. "We're a cosmic variable. Unpredictable. Uncontainable." The holographic display shifted, revealing the complex mathematical construct of the signal they had received. It was an invitation, a challenge, a test that no other known civilization had ever passed. Sergei Volkov chuckled, a sound that was part humor, part pure defiance. Sounds like fun. Dr. Ahmed Khan adjusted his glasses, mathematical possibilities already dancing behind his eyes. Impossible is just another word for not yet solved. They weren't a team in the traditional sense. They were a statement, a living, breathing demonstration of what humanity could achieve when pushed to its absolute limits. The impossible awaited, and they were ready. The moment their ship breached Necropolis Prime's atmosphere, reality itself seemed to lose its fundamental coherence. What sensors and preliminary scans had suggested was hostile became a landscape of pure, malevolent dynamism that defied every known law of planetary physics. Maria Cortez watched the external monitors with a clinical detachment that masked her inner excitement. Gravitational fields fluctuated with impossible speed, transforming solid rock into liquid plasma, then back into crystalline structures in heartbeat intervals. Radiation levels would have obliterated any known biological system within microseconds. Here, it was just another environmental variable to be managed. Structural integrity at 62%, Ahmed Khan reported, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. But that's actually better than our initial projections. The adaptive shielding is performing beyond theoretical models. Sergei Volkov, strapped into his crash harness, didn't even look concerned. Instead, he was meticulously checking a series of custom-engineered survival tools, each one a testament to human ingenuity. Blades that could transform their molecular structure, environmental suits with adaptive nanomaterials, communication devices that could potentially communicate through dimensional fluctuations. Their landing was less a traditional touchdown and more a controlled molecular negotiation with the planet's surface. The ship didn't so much land as it was momentarily permitted to exist by the planet's chaotic environment. Fascinating, Dr. Elena Rodriguez muttered, her eyes tracking multiple data streams that would have overwhelmed any standard computer system. The planet isn't just hostile. It's responsive. Jack Nakamura, their mission coordinator, understood immediately. This wasn't just an environment. It was a testing mechanism so advanced it bordered on sentience. Each moment was a challenge, each second a potential elimination protocol. The moment their airlock opened, the planet made its first real move. Corrosive winds that weren't quite wind, more like molecular disruptors, stripped the outer layer of their protective suits. The ground beneath their feet transformed from solid rock to quicksand to razor-sharp crystalline structures in a matter of seconds. Any traditional biological system would have been destroyed instantly. Humans, however, were anything but traditional. Maria Cortez was the first to move, her body language speaking of decades of survival in environments that would have killed most organisms. She didn't fight the planet's transformations. She read them, anticipated them, moved with them. Gravitational anomaly incoming, she called out, her voice calm. 30-degree lateral shift in molecular density. Recommend immediate adaptive positioning. The team moved not as individual units, but as a coordinated biological system. Ahmed Khan was already recalibrating their environmental suits, using the planet's own molecular chaos as an energy source. Sergei Volkov's enhanced sensory augmentations were tracking potential threat vectors with inhuman precision. The planet is watching us, Nakamura observed, a statement of fact rather than speculation. Every movement is being analyzed. A massive geological transformation erupted around them. What would have been a catastrophic event in any other context became, for this team, just another environmental variable to be managed. Rock became liquid. Liquid became plasma. Plasma became something that defied standard dimensional classification. Cortez laughed. An actual, genuine laugh of pure scientific joy. "Do you hear that?" she asked her teammates. "That's the sound of every previous expedition's failure. And we're about to rewrite the entire concept of survival." Ahmed Khan's computational models were working overtime, transforming each planetary change into predictive data. "Molecular transformation rate is increasing," he reported. But our adaptive systems are matching the progression. We're not just surviving. We're learning. Sergei Volkov, meanwhile, had already begun collecting samples, not with traditional scientific caution, but with a hunter's precision. Each sample was a potential key to understanding the planet's fundamental nature. As their first hour on Necropolis Prime concluded, the planet had already thrown challenges that would have eliminated hundreds of advanced civilizations. For this human team, it was just the beginning. Jack Nakamura's comm channel crackled with a message that captured their collective sentiment. "Well," he said, a rare smile crossing his face, "this is going to be interesting." Humanity had arrived, and the planet was about to learn what that truly meant. The line between technology and survival blurred into a masterpiece of human innovation. Where most species would have developed rigid, complex systems, this team saw their equipment as living, breathing extensions of themselves. Adaptive organisms that could think, respond, and evolve. Maria Cortez stood at the center of their makeshift field laboratory, her hands moving with surgical precision. What began as standard medical and communication equipment was being transformed into something entirely new. She rewired their radiation shields using components from their first aid kit, creating a modular defense system that could reconfigure itself based on environmental input. "Standard equipment is just a suggestion," she muttered, splicing quantum communication modules into what was once a simple diagnostic scanner. Not a limitation. Nearby, Amd Khan was performing his own brand of technological alchemy. The planet's chaotic energy field, which would have destroyed conventional electronics in milliseconds, became his playground. He was converting the random molecular disruptions into a power source, using adaptive nanomaterials that could reconstruct themselves faster than the environment could break them down. "Entropy is just another problem to solve," Khan explained to Jack Nakamura, who watched with a mixture of scientific curiosity and military pragmatism. A holographic display danced around his hands, showing real-time molecular reconstruction rates that would have been considered impossible just hours earlier. Sergei Volkov approached with a collection of environmental samples, each one carefully contained in a containment unit that was more living organism than traditional scientific instrument. The container shifted color and molecular density, adapting to prevent contamination, to minimize energy loss, to maximize information retention. "The planet is trying to break us," Volkov said, his voice a low rumble of determination. "But it doesn't understand what it's dealing with." Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored their progress, her computational models running scenarios that expanded exponentially with each passing moment. What the team was doing wasn't just survival. It was a complete reimagining of technological interaction with an alien environment. Their communication systems were a prime example of this adaptive approach. Where most species would use fixed-frequency radio or quantum entanglement communications, the team developed a hybrid system that could predict and adapt to the planet's dimensional fluctuations. It wasn't just receiving or transmitting information. It was negotiating with the very fabric of communication itself. Jack Nakamura watched a holographic display that showed their technological adaptations. Each modification was color-coded: blue for communications, red for environmental protection, green for energy management. But the colors began to blend, merge, create new spectrums that defied traditional classification. "We're not just adapting," Nakamura observed. "We're engaged in a real-time dialogue with an environment that wants to kill us." Ahmed Khan's latest modification was particularly brilliant. He had taken the planet's random energy disruptions and created a predictive algorithm that could not just anticipate changes, but potentially influence them. It was less about protection and more about technological conversation. Maria Cortez completed her latest modification, a suit enhancement that could actually pull energy from the molecular chaos around them. "Traditional shielding is defensive," she explained. "We're turning destruction into fuel." The team's equipment was becoming something more than technology. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of human innovation. Each piece of equipment modified, each system rebuilt, each component reimagined. Sergei Volkov tested a new communication device, something that was part radio, part quantum translator, part adaptive learning system. Transmitting, he said, his finger touching a surface that was more liquid crystal than solid interface. The device came to life, not with a standard electronic buzz, but with a complex harmonic response that seemed to resonate with the planet's own molecular frequency. "We're not just surviving," Dr. Rodriguez said, watching the system's incredible adaptations. "We're demonstrating that technology is an extension of human creativity, not a tool. A living, breathing partner in survival." As the planet continued its relentless assault of molecular transformations, the human team's technology responded, not with resistance, but with a symphony of adaptation that was beautiful in its complexity. Humanity had arrived, and their technology was about to redefine the very concept of survival. The planet's next assault was not physical, but psychological, a dimension of warfare that would have destroyed most species within moments of engagement. Holographic nightmares materialized around the team, each projection designed to trigger the deepest, most primal human fears. Maria Cortez found herself back in the Amazon, surrounded by the ghosts of her lost research team. The jungle pressed in, dense and suffocating, with spectral figures of her colleagues, those who had died during the expedition, reaching out with accusatory hands. In any other scenario, this would have been a moment of total psychological breakdown. Instead, she laughed. "Interesting approach," Cortez called out to this seemingly empty environment, her voice steady. "Trying to recreate my most traumatic memory. Clever." Sergei Volkov's psychological challenge manifested as a recreation of his most devastating military mission, the Arctic expedition, where he'd lost his entire unit. Temperatures plummeted. Ghostly figures of his fallen comrades appeared in the killing cold, their frozen faces a testament to a mission gone catastrophically wrong. He started singing, a deep, resonant Russian folk song that cut through the psychological projection like a knife. Each note was a defiance, a reminder that human psychological strength transcended mere memory or trauma. And Khan's challenge was more subtle. The holographic environment transformed into a nuclear research facility, with critical systems failing, radiation levels spiking. It was a recreation of the moment he'd manually stopped a potentially world-ending reactor meltdown, the moment that had defined his entire career. He began solving complex quantum mechanics equations, his fingers tracing mathematical formulas in the air, completely unfazed by the psychological warfare being waged around him. Jack Nakamura watched the team's responses with a clinical fascination. The planet wasn't just testing their physical survival, it was probing the very essence of human psychological resilience. "They're not just resisting," Nakamura observed to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who monitored the psychological engagement. "They're actively turning the challenge into something else entirely." Rodriguez nodded. "Humor, music, mathematics. Each of them is responding to psychological warfare with pure human creativity." The environment shifted again. Now each team member was confronted with impossible choices, scenarios designed to break their fundamental moral and psychological framework. Lose one team member to save three. Sacrifice critical mission objectives to preserve individual life. Choose between personal survival and collective success. Sergei Volkov, facing one such impossible scenario, started telling dark, sardonic jokes. Each punchline was a middle finger to the psychological manipulation, transforming potential psychological trauma into moments of dark humor. Maria Cortez responded by singing traditional Brazilian folk songs, melodies of survival, of hope, of community that cut through the holographic psychological attacks like a beacon of human emotional resilience. And Khan recited complex mathematical theorems, his voice a rhythmic counterpoint to the psychological warfare. Each equation was a statement. Human intellect transcends emotional manipulation. The planet's testing mechanisms began to show signs of confusion. These weren't standard responses. These weren't predictable psychological breakdowns. This was something else entirely. They're not just surviving the psychological test, Dr. Rodriguez realized. They're fundamentally rewriting the parameters of psychological engagement. Jack Nakamura's comm channel crackled with a message that captured the team's collective sentiment. "Is that all you've got?" he said, a rare smile crossing his face. The psychological attacks intensified. Memories became weapons. Traumas transformed into holographic landscapes designed to destroy human resolve. But for this team, psychological warfare was just another problem to be solved. Not with resistance, not with defense, but with creativity, with humor, with a fundamental understanding that human psychological strength was never about avoiding pain, but about transforming it. Humanity had arrived, and psychological limitations were about to be redefined. The core of Micropolis Prime was nothing like any of them had imagined. As they penetrated deeper into the planet's central structure, the environment transformed from a hostile testing ground to something far more complex, a living archive of galactic civilizations that had come before them. Holographic records materialized around the team, each projection a brutal testament to failure. Dozens of advanced species, each more technologically sophisticated than the last, had attempted to pass this ultimate test. Their records played out like a cosmic graveyard of potential. And Khan's computational systems worked overtime, capturing and analyzing each fragment of data. "This is extraordinary," he muttered, his fingers dancing across adaptive interfaces that were becoming more advanced with each passing moment. "These aren't just records. They're a comprehensive analysis of species-level potential." The first projection showed a silicon-based civilization from the Andromeda cluster. Technologically advanced beyond human comprehension, they approached the test with mathematical precision. Their failure was total and absolute. Molecular structures collapsed, computational networks fragmented, entire civilizational consciousness wiped out in a fraction of a second. "They were too rigid," Maria Cortez observed, her analytical mind parsing the holographic data. "Perfect technology, zero adaptability." Sergei Volkov moved through the archives with the careful precision of a hunter. Each step was calculated, each observation a potential strategic insight. The next projection revealed an energy-based collective consciousness from a dying star system. They had approached the test as a unified entity, their collective intelligence spanning multiple dimensional planes. Their failure was even more complete. "Collective doesn't mean adaptive," Jack Nakamura commented, watching the archival footage. "It means uniform, and uniform means predictable." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was documenting everything, her computational models working in real time to extract every possible insight. The archives weren't just a record of failure. They were a blueprint of what not to be. A massive holographic display erupted around them, showing the complete history of the testing mechanism. This wasn't just a planetary challenge. It was a cosmic filtration system designed to identify something far more fundamental than technological or biological superiority. "It's looking for potential," Rodriguez realized, her voice cutting through the archival noise. "Not achievement. Potential." The record showed increasingly complex attempts. Civilizations that could manipulate entire star systems. Species that could reshape molecular structures with a thought. Collective intelligences that spanned entire galactic clusters. All of them failed. And Khan's computational systems began to overlay patterns. "The consistent failure point isn't technology," he reported. "It's adaptability. The inability to fundamentally reimagine survival." Each projection was a lesson. Each failed civilization a warning. Sergei Volkov found something else. Hidden within the complex archival systems was a deeper protocol, something that went beyond simple testing. "This isn't elimination," he said, his voice a mix of scientific excitement and military precision. "This is selection." The team realized simultaneously that they were being evaluated not just as individuals, not just as a team, but as a representative sample of an entire species. "They're not trying to kill us," Maria Cortez said, a slow smile spreading across her face. "They're trying to understand us." The final archival projection was the most telling. It showed a complex mathematical construct that was part computational model, part living algorithm. The testing mechanism wasn't just observing. It was learning. Jack Nakamura's comm channel crackled. "We're not just taking the test," he said. "We're rewriting its fundamental parameters." As the alien archives continued to unfold around them, the human team stood at the center of something extraordinary. They weren't just surviving. They were demonstrating a fundamental truth about their species. Humanity was the ultimate cosmic variable. Unpredictable, uncontainable, undefined. The archives continued to play. And for the first time in countless millennia, something new was happening. The test was changing. The final challenges of Necropolis Prime emerged not as physical obstacles, but as a comprehensive test of species-level potential. The planet itself seemed to be reconfiguring, its very molecular structure becoming a living, adaptive test that responded to every human action with increasing complexity. Maria Cortez was the first to recognize the deeper pattern. "It's learning from us," she called out, her voice a mix of scientific excitement and pure wonder. "Every response we make is being analyzed, not just as individual actions, but as a collective behavioral model." The environment around them became a kaleidoscope of possibility. Molecular structures shifted with impossible speed, creating scenarios that would have driven any other species to immediate psychological and physical breakdown. Gravity became fluid. Time seemed to bend. Dimensional barriers flickered like faulty light bulbs. Sergei Volkov moved through these transformations with the grace of a dancer and the precision of a special operations veteran. Where most would see chaos, he saw a pattern. Where others would freeze, he adapted. "It's not just testing our survival," Volkov observed, his augmented sensory systems parsing information faster than most supercomputers could process. "It's testing our fundamental approach to existence." And Khan was simultaneously documenting and solving the planet's increasingly complex challenges. His computational models were no longer just analyzing. They were engaging in a real-time dialogue with the planetary testing mechanism. Each algorithm became a conversation, each solution a negotiation. "Conventional survival is linear," Khan explained, his fingers tracing complex mathematical patterns in the air. "We're demonstrating that survival is recursive, adaptive, a continuous process of reimagination." Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the team's interactions with a combination of scientific fascination and pure human pride. This wasn't just a mission. This was a statement about the fundamental nature of human potential. The planet threw everything it could imagine at them. Psychological warfare transformed into physical challenges. Dimensional disruptions became computational puzzles. What would have destroyed any other species became, for this team, an opportunity for collective problem-solving. Jack Nakamura's communication systems began to pick up something extraordinary. The planetary testing mechanism was no longer just observing. It was communicating, not with words, not with traditional signals, but with potential. "We're being asked a question," Nakamura realized, "not verbally, not mathematically, but at a fundamental level of existence." The challenge became clear. This was a test of how a species approaches the unknown, not just with technology, not just with intelligence, but with a fundamental reimagining of what's possible. Maria Cortez started laughing, a genuine deep laugh that cut through the dimensional disruptions like a beacon. "Do you see what's happening?" she asked her teammates. "We're not just surviving. We're demonstrating that survival is an art form." Sergei Volkov began to sing, an old Russian folk song that spoke of survival, of hope, of human resilience. The song became a mathematical pattern. The pattern became a computational model. The model became a dimensional bridge. And Khan was solving complex, multidimensional problems that would have taken most species millennia to even conceptualize. But for him, it was a collaborative process. Each solution was an invitation to a more complex question. The planet's testing mechanism reached a critical point. This wasn't just about physical survival. This was about understanding the fundamental nature of adaptive potential. Dr. Rodriguez's computational models captured something extraordinary. The human team wasn't just responding to the test. They were fundamentally changing its parameters. "We're not just a species," she said, her voice cutting through the dimensional chaos. "We're a process of continuous reimagination." As the final challenges approached, the team moved not as individuals, but as a living, breathing demonstration of human potential. Each member's unique skills became part of a collective approach that defied traditional understanding of survival, intelligence, and possibility. The planet was learning, and humanity was teaching it something fundamental about existence itself. Survival wasn't just about enduring. It was about transforming. The moment of resolution was nothing like anyone had anticipated. Necropolis Prime didn't explode. It didn't surrender. It transformed. The planetary structure began to unfold like a living mathematical construct, each molecular layer revealing complex systems of communication that went beyond any known form of technological interaction. Where most species would have seen a final challenge, the human team saw an invitation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched in awe as computational systems that had been analyzing their every move suddenly began to resonate at a frequency that was part communication, part celebration. "We're not being evaluated anymore," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and pure human excitement. "We're being recognized." Jack Nakamura's communication systems erupted with a cascade of data that wasn't a signal, but a symphony. Dimensional frequencies that would have driven most species mad became, for this team, a complex dialogue of potential. "It's transmitting our entire mission," Nakamura reported, "not just our actions, our approach." Sergei Volkov stood at the center of the transformation, his augmented senses parsing information that went beyond traditional human perception. The planet, no, the entire testing mechanism, was doing something extraordinary. It was sharing its own history, its own purpose. Maria Cortez realized first what was happening. "This isn't just a test," she said. "This is a recruitment mechanism for something larger." The holographic projections that surrounded them began to show a complex galactic network. Not a military structure, not a political system, but a collaborative framework of species that had demonstrated a fundamental approach to existence itself. And Khan's computational models were working overtime. "We're being invited," he said, "not to join, but to participate." The transmission was simultaneously a record and an invitation. Thousands of civilizations had been tested, hundreds had been evaluated, but humanity was something different entirely, not because of their technology, not because of their intelligence, but because of their approach to the unknown. Dimensional barriers began to shift. The very fabric of the planetary structure became a living communication system. What had been a test was now becoming something else entirely. "We're not just being accepted," Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice cutting through the complex dimensional interactions. "We're being asked to contribute." The final transmission was both simple and infinitely complex, a mathematical construct that was part invitation, part recognition, part fundamental understanding of human potential. Sergei Volkov laughed, a deep, resonant laugh that seemed to cut through dimensional barriers. "We're not just a species," he said. "We're a process of continuous reimagination." The planetary structure began to compile a comprehensive record, not just of their mission, not just of their survival, but of their fundamental approach to existence. Jack Nakamura's communication systems captured the essence of the transmission. It wasn't a message in any traditional sense. It was in recognition of potential. Humanity wasn't being invited to join something. Humanity was being recognized as a fundamental component of something larger. Maria Cortez looked at her teammates. Each of them represented something extraordinary, not just as individuals, not just as a team, but as a representation of human potential. "We're going to need a bigger mission report," she said, a smile spreading across her face. The transmission continued. Dimensional frequencies shifted. Computational systems that had been evaluating them for millennia were now sharing something profound. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors, not as visitors, but as participants in a cosmic dialogue of potential. And Khan's final computational analysis said it best. We're not just a species. We're a fundamental variable in the equation of existence. Necropolis Prime had found its answer. Humanity was that answer.